Siddharth, welcome to BGS.
It's a pleasure.
It's such an honor to have you as our first guest in Mumbai. Feels very surreal, actually.
Same here.
So, I would love to ask you to introduce yourself to us and what it is that you spend your time doing.
Well, my name is Siddharth Sharma, and I, along with a bunch of other people, we run what I would like to call as a creative agency called House on the Clouds. And within that, in that agency, we do a lot of stuff. Weddings is the major portion of what we do. Along with that, we have other stuff like ads and fashion and some random stuff as well. But weddings is mostly what we do most of our time.
Do you like what you do?
I love what I do. I absolutely, it's been quite a lot of years and still I don't feel tired or exhausted or run down by the kind of work. Even though we work a lot, it's a pretty tough job, to be very honest. Shooting a wedding is not that easy. It's a tough job, but still it's that passion is still intact, and that drives us, all of us actually at HOTC.
I love to hear that. And I think that's a big reason why I choose to interview creatives, because to me, I feel like the passion shines through so much. And also because a creative path isn't always the most conventional.
Yeah.
And before we started recording, you just told me you actually had a very different career before you started House on the Clouds. So could you tell me a little bit about that transition you made?
They say in India, if you want to do what you really want to do, you first have to be an engineer, and then you decide what you really want to do in life. And I think I'm just one of those kids who did his engineering and spent a decade in the IT industry, and actually I did pretty decently well. And not that I was not happy. I enjoyed my time in that part of my life, and but it's just that the the search for doing something which satisfies you creatively or internally, you feel happy for what you do. I think that took me to this profession. That And it's been some time since I made the jump.
Did you always feel like there was some sort of void maybe when you were doing the role in IT that wasn't being fulfilled at the time? Or were you fulfilling it in other ways that weren't, a full-time job?
Honestly, I never felt any void. I was so happy, and not creatively, because I never thought of myself to be a creative person.
Yeah.
I thought it's just like this is how it is, and you go to office, you come back, you have fun. And in US, I had a bunch of friends, and we used to um, enjoy a lot. I love playing cricket, so we used to play a lot of cricket, used to visit a lot of places, and it was fun. But I never felt like a void, because I never thought that there is any creative kind of there's anything creative in me. But what happens in US, you have a lot of time, and when you have a lot of time, you now try to figure out things to do. And this photography happened during that time, because in winters it gets very dark at 4:30. When you leave office, it's already dark.
Yeah, I
And when
know.
you come back home, and it's all very dark and depressing. And at that time, I sort of picked up photography, picked up my first camera, but not as a creative kind of a passion, but I picked up a camera because I wanted to take photos of my friend's son, who I
Oh,
loved a lot. He was a small, cute little baby, and I wanted to take good photos of him, so I purchased the camera. And that's how it started. And then obviously it evolved, and but again, not in wedding kind of a thing. It was mostly, I started as a photographer for that, that little kid. But then I somehow I went into conceptual photography, and that was so tough. It was very difficult because I used to follow a lot of photographers who were doing conceptual at that time, and I was inspired by them, and I wanted to do something, and that's how I sort of entered into a creative space. Where you put your brain also. It's not just about taking a photo of something you see, but you create, and that happened while I was in US. I was working, so you can say that that was probably 14 or 15 years ago. This sort of shift happened to photography.
Right. Can I ask what camera did you get as your first one?
It was Canon. I remember actually it was T1i.
Okay.
T1i, yes. I think that was the first camera I purchased. Before that, I had the small point and shoot
Yeah.
camera, but the first professional, serious camera was Canon T1i. Yeah.
Do you ever reflect on the fact that you started out to shoot or take pictures of this kid that you loved so much, and look at where you are now, and the work you've done is just such a trajectory.
It's unreal, actually. It's unreal because nothing was planned. Nothing, like I never, as a kid, even as an adult, I never sat and imagine, okay, this is what I want to do, or this is what I will end up doing. It's unreal. I mean, it's just, and it just happened. Nothing was planned. It just happened and just moved with the waves. That's it. I never planned anything.
So tell me about the first ever wedding you filmed, actually. How did that come about? Was it something you sought out actively, or did it come to you?
So the first wedding was my friend's wedding.
Okay.
And by that time I was back in India. So I came back to India in 2012, and I moved to Bangalore. And I was working, again in IT, but my role, which I had in US, was not there in India. So I was not quite happy in the role that I got back in India. But even at that time, I had no clue what else to do. If you're in IT, you can either work for one company or go to other company. So so that was kind of my mindset, and I was not very excited with the role that I had. And then one of my best friends, he came to India from US. He came to India and he wanted to marry, and his wedding was very, very interesting, very eventful, if that's the right word. And so he asked me, okay, can you shoot my wedding? And I said, yeah, of course I have a camera, so yeah, I can. And there was no other photographer or videographer. I was alone, and I shot that wedding. And as a person, I hate weddings. I used to hate weddings. I never enjoyed weddings. Even as a kid, I used to tell my mom and dad, please leave me at home. Don't take me to any wedding. I don't know what to do there. I usually go and have ice cream and just come back. And I had no idea. I didn't like wedding. I was a very introvert, kind of a shy kind of a boy as a kid. So wedding was obviously not the right space for introverts. It's not. It's the exactly opposite.
Yeah.
Introverts don't want to be in a space like a wedding. So I never liked wedding, but somehow when I shot my friend's wedding, I found it so interesting, because I thought if you have a job to do at a wedding, weddings can be so interesting. Like there's some okay, it could be like handling something also. If it's my friend's wedding and he tells me, okay, can you handle food? Even that is now you have a job. So I think I'll be very happy to do something useful at a wedding than just sitting and just looking at people. So yeah, I mean, I think that experience was very, very creatively, I would say, creatively satisfying. And that was my first kind of an experience, that. But still, even after that, being a wedding photographer was never a plan. It's just that I shot the wedding, I was happy, and that's it. That's about it. And then I just continued with my IT life after that.
It's so funny you say that weddings aren't for introverted people, because I feel that so much. I did not like weddings as a kid either. I used to be forced to wear frocks that were itchy, and I just remember not enjoying it at all. And now I like love dancing in weddings, and very interestingly also love having a job at a wedding. So if I'm, say, a bridesmaid, it's not the same as what you're doing at weddings, but if I've given a responsibility or something, then it's a bit more like, okay, I'm useful now.
Yeah.
I can occupy my brain and I don't have to sit there like a lemon. But having said that, I do love going for the food. So I will be that person who will just be eating a plate of food on my own as well.
Yeah.
So no, they do grow on you, weddings. And it depends a lot who it is. Because I think when you're a kid, maybe you don't care so much for sounds bad, but for the couple.
Yeah, because I mean, most of the time you don't know.
You don't know the
who's getting
couple.
married.
You're
It's
just being
like,
dragged. Yeah.
could be your dad's friend, could be your mom's masi, chachi. We don't know like who's
Exactly.
getting married. So especially if your cousins are not there.
Oh gosh,
so it's,
yeah.
it's a torture. So but yeah, but again, if you have something meaningful,
Yeah.
weddings are actually pretty exciting.
They are. And actually, now that you reflect on that first wedding you shot for, which was your friend's wedding, do you feel like there is certain ethos that House on the Clouds still maintains to today that was something you adhered to, during that first wedding? Is there something that you can pinpoint that has stuck through the years?
I think the whole point of why you are present at a wedding has to be justified. I feel like if somebody has invited you to shoot his wedding, it could be your friend also. You have a task, and the task is to justify your job, and that is something which I feel it's still there at HOTC. And to justify what you feel, what you experience at a wedding, there has to be a meaningful justification of your presence at that wedding. If it's a fun wedding, then the fun has to be reflected in the photographs. If it's a very emotional wedding, then that emotions have to be present in the photograph or film you take. I think this sort of aim I had when I was shooting my first wedding, and the same aim we have for the next wedding. So that thing I don't think has changed since then. And I ensure that the whole team has the same ethos.
Right. So when you are about to go into a wedding, do you brief your team on what that intent is that you're going in with?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Every single wedding, even though it might look like it's a template, like there's a haldi, there's a mehndi, there's a ceremony, but the stories are different, the people are different, and the chemistry, the whole what you call the chaos is different. So having a very deep understanding of the couple, of the family, and the knowledge of the space of the events, and also why is this wedding happening,
Yeah.
why are these two people getting married. So this understanding is a must for as a photographer, as a filmmaker, and for the whole team. And I'll tell you a very recent kind of experience that we had, where sometimes when you there's a wedding and you speak with the couple, and okay, they brief, most of the time they brief you about the wedding itself, the flow of the wedding and everything. But sometimes in the middle of that wedding, you experience that there's such depth to the wedding,
Yeah.
which we didn't know earlier. When you come and sit with the couple and you speak with the couple, then you realize, okay, this is so much more meaningful. This wedding is not just it's not just people coming in and dancing and having food. There's a depth, and a lot of times we experience that depth midway in that wedding sometimes, and that changes our perspective, and then again our approach changes, the process changes, and everything changes. And that has to be again told to the team and reflected and planned and everything. So yeah, knowledge, understanding of the people and the reason why they're getting married is super important.
Like a little bit of a light bulb moment that happens in the middle of a creative.
Because weddings are a very it's emotional. A lot of people are at their emotional peak, unexpected, it's chaotic, nobody knows what can happen. Nobody knows how can people react to a, to a certain situation. So it's always, very chaotic or beautiful space to be in, to experience, people getting married.
What would you say is the most maybe, or a very strong underrated skill that you have or you've had to develop as someone who leads House on the Clouds and deals with people who are at their emotional peak?
See, I told you I'm a very introvert person,
Yeah.
and but still, one skill I had to, sort of develop within me. Being an introvert, I think it's not. It's a handicap actually, because when you go to a wedding, it's part of your job to connect with people, and there was always a, what you call a gap between the kind of films I wanted to make and the kind of personality I had at that time, because I'm an introvert, but the kind of films I wanted to make, I wanted them to be very personal. Like when a bride turns and she looks in the camera, there should be a smile. No, like, oh, why the camera here? That should not be the expression. Oh, okay, no, don't shoot. Like, but when she turns randomly, when a groom turns and looks at the camera, there should be a smile. Not for the camera, at least for the person. To create that kind of a bond, to get into that personal space of a couple who you just met, that I felt was a skill which I didn't have earlier, and then I had to work on it. And this is again a very underrated skill, because a lot of people don't realize that the importance of this skill at a wedding. And I knew, I have some limitations as a person, but the demand for my profession, for my job, or the kind of films I wanted to make made me learn, made me change, made me into a person who, I won't say super friendly or that super extrovert, but still I changed into a person who can do his job decently.
Yes.
I won't still say that I'm a person like life of the party and I go and everybody starts talking to me. I'm not that kind of a person. But at least I am happy in that, in developing that specific skill, that I can do at least my job properly in the way I want, to see my work.
Yeah, I really relate to that feeling of there being a gap between where you are and who you naturally are and where you want to be.
Yeah.
I think obviously I can relate to it so much running a podcast, because I also am quite introverted, and I've had to train myself to not appear as introverted.
Yeah.
So when people meet me, they don't know that I am. But it's because over the years, I guess you just learn how to present yourself. And also, like, for example, maybe one thing I naturally found within myself was that I was quite good one-to-one. So I can create that space with one person. But similarly to you, in a group, I am just sitting there. Like I will make some awkward joke and no one laughs. And then I'll go home and get really upset and be like, no one thought I was funny. Did I say something stupid? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I could totally relate. I don't know, like, if there is no sort of, like, say, if you meet a stranger and there's no topic, there's no subject.
Yeah.
Then what, after saying hello, okay, hi, my name is Siddharth, then what?
Yeah.
What to say?
Like
What
the
to
weather
say?
is
Talk
nice.
talk about weather, talk about movies. I don't know what to say next. So it's always but in a wedding, because there's a subject, you know that there is a task, there is an aim. So it's easier for me to communicate in that, in that space, because I
Yes.
know we have obviously there's a common thing between us. It's not like random.
Yeah.
But if the same couple calls me to, let's say, the wedding is done and they call me, okay, come to my house, let's party, I cannot go. Because then that subject is done. The wedding is done. We can discuss about the wedding, but after that, I don't know what to say. And actually, I am scared to start a conversation also.
Yeah.
I'm scared to start a conversation with, even my own couple post the wedding. So yeah, this is again, I would call is something I would like to develop. I would like to improve in that space of being less socially awkward. So, but probably it's too late now. I'm already.
I would disagree with you on the handicap front, because I actually think there's such a strength to be played into. And I think there's such a strength that people who are a little bit more intuitive bring. They may be quieter people who aren't the loudest in the room, but they may be the observers. They may be people to whom weddings mean so much more than they are showing. But actually, because I think the art means so much to you, even if you're not able to maybe always articulate it in the way that you want to, I feel like you're still able to translate that into your work. And because you were talking about how, in a wedding, you have a set structure, these are the kind of things you need to be doing. You need to understand the couple's vibe, and then you need to translate that into the final product and make sure they're happy with that because that's what they want. You're actually able to deliver because you can understand those things, even if you're not necessarily saying it exactly like that way. So I would give myself more credit if I was you, because I actually think there's a big reason why you're running House on the Clouds and why it is doing so well in the space. I mean, I don't know if every day it feels that way for you, but on the outside, you're killing it.
Yeah, personally, maybe not. Like we don't sit and think like, okay, this is what we have done and all that. But it's good to hear such things, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, someone who's from London knows about your work and has seen it without even knowing, this is the face behind the brand. So I think that's a testament. And that probably takes us really nicely to talking about some of the awesome weddings you worked on, which I will apologize in advance that I'll have to maybe read out. But you worked on Alia Bhatt and Ranbir Kapoor's wedding. You worked on Kiara Advani and Sid Malhotra's wedding as well. You did photos for them. Atiya Shetty, Arpita Mehta, Pariniti Chopra, and Aditi Rao Hedri, who's one of my personal favorites. I love them as a couple. And Shobita Dulapala, who huge fan of from Made in Heaven. And very recently you worked on Pratik Babbar's wedding as well, and Priya Banerjee's. What is one thing you could say is slightly different about shooting a celebrity wedding versus a non-celebrity wedding?
Honestly, I don't like the word celebrity.
Okay.
Even sometimes even when I go to places, they put celebrity wedding photographer under my name, and I hate that. To me, the difference is between shooting for an artist and shooting for a normal couple, like normal general people, because I feel artists are a different breed. They're different humans. They're different people. So yes, if some artist is very famous, you call them as a celebrity. For me personally, I just think of them as an artist, and I feel we as a team are extremely lucky, very fortunate to have been working with a lot of artists. We have shot musicians, we have shot photographers, we have shot directors, we have shot actors, actresses, fashion designers. They're all, like, to me, they're artists. They're different breed of people. And when you shoot for them, most of the time you end up learning something new. They're different. I'll give you an example. We shot Pulkit and Kriti's wedding, and we made a film, and I showed it to them, like a small, like 4-5 minute film, whatever. And I showed it to them 2-3 days after their wedding, and they called me and they spoke for 30 minutes. I love the film. And actually, I've never had anybody call me and spoke for 30 minutes praising that film. I was so overwhelmed. But she said that there's a part in the film where Pulkit is giving a speech, and that speech is so clean, so neat and clean. When I was there in that room, I didn't hear him so clean. When I was there was an echo in the room, and I was able to hear a photographer clicking, the sound of that photographer clicking. And I want that feel in the film. So we had to use the sound which is recording on the camera, so that we can get the same feel of, it's not perfect, there's echo, it's distorted, the audio is distorted, there's a photographer, if you see the film, there's a clicking sound, cut. And normal people don't say stuff like this. Only when you're working with an artist who's in that creative profession, any creative profession, they come up with these kind of things. And that sort of, it's a learning experience for me. Okay, so because they want to go back to the same space they are in, and how she felt while she was standing and listening to. It was an emotional kind of a moment, very emotional speech. She wanted to have that same kind of feel to the film as well, how she felt while she was standing, and these sounds are a part of that feel. And for me, that was an eye opener. Even though we have done so many weddings, so many different people, but still there's always a learning. So when you shoot for an artist, there's always something new, other than the creative freedom you have.
Yeah.
You have to try something. They have a slightly better understanding. So yeah, I would like to call them as artists shooting. You can call me as artists, wedding photographer. That I like that word. Then a celebrity wedding photographer. I don't like the word celebrity at all.
Yeah. That a lot of that probably does show your humility because yes, that is what you're known as, a celebrity wedding photographer, even though you hate it.
Yeah.
But I guess my next question to you would be, did you ever intend for House on the Clouds to be as big as it is and as well known as it is?
I don't think there was any intention, but I think it's a very natural kind of a progression. We always, as a team, as a company, you always want to do something better. And growth in terms of scale is just a part of that want to do something better. And this has always been a driving factor for House on the Clouds, to do something better, bigger, so you can say, because I want to experience everything. I want to see everything. I want to shoot small weddings. I want to shoot weddings in temple. I want to shoot weddings in house. I want to shoot grand weddings. And I think it's just that, to do all of that, there has to be, there is a certain progression that you have to make. You have to grow. There is no doubt about it. And even though you like it or not, to be very honest, growth is something which is sort of a double-edged sword kind of a thing, because once we entered the celebrity space, we figured out that a lot of people are too scared to approach us.
You mean the artist space?
No, like outside, like normal. Like,
Yeah.
for example, if you have a very beautiful story, let's say there's a wedding, people are too scared to approach us. And that I felt was a byproduct of the growth that you. But that won't stop us from growing. We have to grow. It's you cannot be stuck to a certain in a certain time phase. But yeah, I mean the growth has to happen for me, for the team. The whole team will enter different phases of their lives, their expectations. For my own team, I have to we have to scale up. We have to grow.
Yeah.
And that I think we'll continue to do so.
How many people are in the team, HOTC?
Right now, I think the count is 21. We have a team of 21, 22 people. I started alone, and for most of the initial phase, there were 4 to 5 people who sort of helped build House on the Clouds initially. And then we kept on adding a lot of people. And again, this is a part of the progression. Every time a new person joins, he brings fresh ideas. A company changes. When you hire a very creative person, your work goes through a change, and that is reflected. And that I feel is something which I really, really want to do for House on the Clouds. To the change, the work that we do has to go through some changes. And maybe I'm not that talented, because you get stuck to your certain way of doing things. So you have to have people who sort of don't agree with you, who have a very different style, who want to do their own thing. And when when a person or an individual, an artist who joins you, then the work changes. It goes through the change, and that process. And that's why we are now 21 people, because I just wanted to have fresh new people coming in, making contributions, changing what we do, and we'll keep on doing that.
In what ways have your team elevated the brand and added fresh ideas? Like, do you have any examples you could share with us?
I mean, see, I think, again, I've been extremely, extremely fortunate to, I always tell a lot of people that I am an extremely, extremely lucky person. And honestly, it's not something I am making up, but I think I'm a very, very lucky person. things just happen. Somehow, I don't know how, things just happen. I just find the right people. And why I'm fortunate is because the people who are working for HOTC, they give everything for that, and it's a very tough profession. It's not that easy. It might look very fancy from outside,
A little bit glamorous.
very glamorous, but it's not. It is a very tough profession. It's a very physically tough, mentally tough. So the team has to really, and alone you cannot do anything. I have designed HOTC as a collective.
Yeah.
The structure of HOTC is a collective. There's no one person. There can be one representative of the collective, which is me, but as a collective, everybody has their voice. Everybody has, they can do their own thing. And when they do their own thing, then the company grows. So I'm extremely fortunate that people who work for me are, they give everything.
Yeah.
I don't have to tell them like, okay, this has to be done. Just they know it will be done. And extremely passionate bunch of people right now.
Yeah, maybe it is somewhat the intuitiveness in you as well to be drawn to those types of people that add to the brand in the way that you want them to, And I think, again, you're not giving yourself enough credit, I don't think.
I'm telling you, I'm a very, very lucky person. In all, I think not just the team, in every aspect, I think I'm an extremely fortunate, blessed with luck. And if you, speak with some of the people who are around me, they will say that, okay, you have been like really, really lucky.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only talent actually. I think that's the only talent I have, that, I'm just sort of, things just happen around me for some reason. I don't know why.
I actually am so curious to hear about the actual process. And I think we probably need 3 hours to sit here and talk about the actual process of shooting the beautiful films and the photos that you create. But I guess if you could give us kind of maybe a little peek into how you actually take a couple and their love story and understand what they're about and use kind of, I guess, the dynamic that you've got going on in your team to translate that into some of the most beautiful, artsy, visual storytelling that we have seen coming from India.
See, internally, we divide our approach into 3 layers within our team. One is the soul. Now, the soul layer is getting to know about the people, the chemistry, the story. The second layer is what we call as cinema, because there is a story, but you need to present it in a way that it becomes the recall value is higher. Visually, it looks very good. So then there is a layer of cinema where we work on the visuals aspect of that story. How we present that story. Like, for example, if I'm talking to you and I'm asking you about your childhood, about, let's say, if you're getting married, if you're asking about how you guys met, that's the soul part of it. But the kind of what light, where we are sitting, where are we sitting, and is that setting works well with the kind of story that you're going to tell. That becomes a cinema. So the third layer is the moments where we sort of, when we build a film and we build a set of photographs, that if the story says that you're an extremely emotional person, then the moments are going to be that tear coming from your eye. So all these 3 things, when put together, that is what results in a film. So internally, we work in these 3 layers. So we have people who are dedicated to each layer. Like, there'll be one person who will be working on the soul aspect of it, whose job is to ensure that the story is justified, is translated into the photographs and film. So this is how our approach is. It might sound a bit technical, but it's pretty simple. Very simple approach, and this works in justifying in actually any. That's how we are able to able to execute any wedding comfortably. Be it a small wedding which is at home, the same approach applies, or it's a big scale wedding which is, like, say, big country or Italy or somewhere. But the core approach is the same, and it works in every single wedding.
And how do you then reassure your couple that you've actually heard what they are wishing for in their video or in their photos? Do you provide them with any kind of visual references or examples of what you've done? Like, how does that actually work if I was a couple and I wanted to work with you?
See, I assume if you have approached me, you have done your research.
Okay.
I start with that assumption that you know us, that you have seen our work. So that assumption I make. And then after that comes the customizations. I can customize. I cannot change my approach completely just to make you happy. So I make an assumption that, okay, you have come to us, you like our approach, the kind of films you make, the kind of photographs you do, you connect with those. And that's why you come to me. And now we sort of, customize it, tweak it. So because obviously there'll be a difference between your aesthetics and my aesthetics. So we try to come as close as possible.
Yeah, meet in the middle somewhere.
Come as close as possible. So, and that is through, this like conversations like this. Like we sit and we talk. Okay, what do you want? Yes, visual references, they do come in handy. A lot of times, these days especially, brides have a very, very clear understanding of, they create their whole, the wedding film also, they in their head, they can see their wedding film.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, we have to get that film out of their head.
Right.
That, you can have a, certain dream, you can have an imagination. So this is also our job that, okay, this is not going to happen. A lot of times brides think, okay, I'm going to have a beautiful sunset wedding, but the wedding time is 7 or 8. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's also a part of our job to make sure that, the realistic kind of expectations are set. So yeah.
You make them aware of the factors that they can control and can't control, and then work the best way possible with that, right? And also set expectations, which is probably a very big part of it.
Also, actually help them plan better. A lot of times it's just, because we have shot a lot of weddings, it might be your first wedding, but we have done a lot of weddings. So a lot of times, it's always a collaboration. It's always a collaboration. We alone cannot do anything. It's a collaboration between us and you as a couple. It's a collaboration between the makeup artist. It's a collaboration between, the wedding planner, like everything. It's a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
We can claim, okay, if you see a photo, I can always claim, okay, this is mine and I can get credit. But actually, it's a collaborative kind of a process. And a lot of people have done their job very well to get a good photograph. So yeah, I mean, as a photographer, my job is to make sure this collaboration work well.
And how much of a microscopic influence do you have when it comes to the photos and the product at the end of the wedding? So what I mean to say is, how much of a hand do you have actively in everything that HOTC now produces? Or do you kind of just oversee the vision and make sure that your team are just briefed very well and you trust them to do the job?
I would like to have very minimal kind of a role.
Yeah.
But I don't think I think it'll still take some more time for me to get into a zone where I don't have to look into each and everything. I'm still very
involved,
picky, very particular about few things, even colors. I have this thing like sometimes I see a photograph and the colors are not up to the mark. I usually just drop a message. What is this? It's not. It won't work. Sometimes we are short on time. Sometimes especially in celebrity space. You have to deliver in 10 minutes, 5 minutes. That's the time we usually get to deliver the photos. And in that rush, mistakes. You can make mistakes, and then after that, I feel like damn, this so that the colors are not good, and this and that. But yeah, I mean, my involvement is still there, more than what I would or my family would want. My family really want to, for me to slow down. But still, yeah, it's tough. For something, if you have worked on your life, you've been 10 years, it's very difficult to sort of give it to somebody else. So my involvement is still there, pretty much actually.
It is. It's your baby. It's your
Yeah,
10-year-old.
yeah. It's very difficult to give it into. Even though my team, I have an amazing team.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry, but still, it's just like nature. By nature, I have, I want to see everything.
As an artist yourself, I would love to know what specific moments you typically look out for in a wedding when you are actually on the scene working. Are there any moments like, I don't know, like the mother of the bride crying, looking at her daughter, or the groom obviously getting emotional when the bride walks in? Like, what are those specific things?
There's no specific thing. You have to keep your eyes open all the time, because the thing about weddings is anything can happen anytime. It isn't. See, there are few things which are on the schedule. That is something like, for example, fairas. Fairas are going to happen at 6 p.m. 5:30 is going to be the Varmala, 6 is the faira, and there are going to be few things around that. If the Varmala is happening, you always anticipate some emotional moment or something, happening around, probably the bridesmaids, shedding a tear, or the mother, or the father becoming emotional, especially during Varmala. I think a lot of times the family, especially the mom, have that realization that their daughter is getting married during Varmala. That suddenly it hit them, and we have seen a lot of times while shooting Varmala, the mom is crying somewhere. So there's there's an anticipation. We can anticipate few moments. We can plan for those moments, but most of the stuff which happens, which is not on the schedule, that is something which is tough to capture, especially in a destination wedding.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to sort of capture, and that's why you need to hunt for those moments. Sometimes, for example, when the bride is getting ready, it's a very emotional kind of very chaotic, there's a lot of anxiety, and in that stress, and in that stress and anxiety, there are a lot of moments. So I love to be around the bride.
Yeah.
In that specific, a lot of unexpected things can happen. There can be Papa coming from the room shouting, "We are already late. The guests are already arrived. Bharat is there. Somebody has to go." And then the bride reacting to that stress, that anxiety. It's a moment.
Right.
Not everything is perfect and all emotional. Sometimes this stress and anxiety also, after 10 years, when you see a photograph, scared because you're late, and that also is a part of the documentation of your wedding. So yeah, I think that is something I really enjoy, the getting ready part at the time of the wedding.
And when you're kind of pooling everything that you've filmed or shot after a wedding, how do you actually vet things that you want to take forward into post-production and present to the couple? Do they receive everything, or do you go through a process with your team and say, okay, look, this is good, this is maybe not? How does that work? Or do you work with a couple on it?
No, we don't work with couple. I think it'll take 10 years. If I sit with a couple to make a film, it is going to take me 10 years to make the film. Even now, it takes a lot of time. So the initial process is, once we are done with the wedding, as a director, let's say if I'm the director, I create points. Assuming I am one of the family members. Let's say I am groom's brother, or a bride's brother or bride's sister. And you think from that point of view. You should know who are the important people who should be there in the film. Important moments, obviously. And sometimes there are connections, small little connections. For example, you might say something about dogs. Oh, I have a dog. And then there has to be a connection where there's a visual of the dog somewhere. So these small connections. So as a director, I sit and make points. Okay, this is the whole wedding. These are the important people. This has happened. There was an emotional moment between the mother and the bride at this specific point. And then the editor sits on it. Even then, the length of a film is usually only 20 to 25 minutes. We do not try to exceed that length, because the film has to be rewatchable. I don't want people to plan like call their family to make it like an event to watch a 3 hour long film. It should be on your phone. It should be shareable. It should be something where you can just quickly refresh your memories. So
Yeah.
20-25 minutes in my experience is a perfect kind of a length. And that's all. And it has everything. It has all the important people. It has
All the
all the important
emotions.
moments. Any wedding of any scale, any length can be properly summarized in 20 to 25 minutes, in my opinion. There are exceptions and we make those exceptions, but normally that's a length we deliver.
Beautiful and very thoughtful. It seems like it's so intentional the way it's all done, and probably many years in the making now of coming up with a process that works. So speaking of the industry in general and the expectations that couples now have, how do you see this space actually evolving with, obviously we talk about the growth of social media, people wanting to be viral from their weddings and things like that and being featured in publications. How do you navigate all of that and make sure that HOTC is keeping up with the times and always innovating?
Definitely having an understanding of what's going around, having with your eyes and ears open all the time, because it's plays a major role in what we do. Yes, the social media it's it's again, it's like both. There are both positives and negatives. Positives is because your work can reach a major audience, but also the influence of work of what is on the social media on the bride is present. And a lot of times we get requests on, I want my wedding to be like this, to be like that. The good thing is, that we are at a stage where we can say no. We were not always there. A lot of times you have to say yes. And but we are at a stage where we can say no. We can tell you that, okay, this is not what we do. If you want your wedding to be featured in somewhere, we can't do that. Our job is to shoot. Our job is to make sure we capture it well. Beyond that, it's not our, and this is something, it's mostly about educating with the couple. But yes, the social media effect is there. It's going to stay. It's going to get even, more. But we also have to, adapt to it, but still keeping our, the core in place. We can't forget why we are doing it. And we can't, let go of our core values, but still sort of navigating through the changes. So yeah, it's a balancing act.
Have you said no to any couples that you now regret in hindsight?
See, the only two reasons why we say no to a couple is either we are not available or the budgets don't match. So we don't say no just because we don't like the couple. But I regret not doing weddings of couple who never approached us.
Oh,
that regret is there. I don't remember regretting a couple for saying no, because there are valid reason. But I regret sometimes when I see a wedding, it's so beautiful, I feel like, oh yeah, I should have done it. That regret is there, and I think that's a human nature that's going to be there all the time. And it's again part of it should be there. I feel that's how you will push. Okay, like, because again, what happened is, because we gain certain scale, and I felt like whenever somebody posts a very small wedding somewhere, I felt like so bad. I wanted to do such small and intimate wedding, and and then what we did, we started a new kind of a division called Samsara now, which is specifically for very, very small weddings. So we are doing a lot of weddings in that area. So it's a dedicated team, and we do like super cute small temple house, or very, 1 person or 2 person shooting. It is because of that regret, because I regretted not doing some weddings. So I want to make sure that I can reduce that regret by, creating a new division, and it's working very well.
Yeah.
It's doing well.
Well, it's great to hear that even maybe a possibly negative emotion like regret has translated into something beautiful as a branch of House on the Clouds. So, and also very reassuring to hear that even people who are established outwardly and, so seemingly successful still get FOMO or still feel, I should have done that.
Yeah.
Or this didn't go quite right. I guess to kind of deviate a little bit away from talking about filming weddings and photography, do you have any passions outside of your day job, let's say, that you really hold dear to your heart that people don't really know about?
There are a lot, and happy to say that we are sort of pursuing all those passions as well. As a kid, I always wanted to make films. I was a very, again, because I was very introvert. I was very secluded kind of. I used to sit in my room dreaming about things, and
What things did you dream about?
a lot of random stuff. Like sometimes I'm a Superman, sometimes I'm a Spider-Man. That kind of dreams.
Yeah.
Kids. But I while growing up, I had these. I loved watching whimsical films like Edward Scissorhand,
Oh, yeah.
Truman Show. I really wanted to make something of that sort, and that is something we're still pursuing. At least the dream is there, and hopefully, that is one part of it. The second part is fashion. I don't understand fashion, to be very honest, but I we have a team which are as a team we have a certain aesthetics, and I feel it's very exciting to explore how we can translate those aesthetics into fashion. This is one of that, actually. This T-shirt is one of those kind of pursuit, kind of what we are doing. It's into fashion.
So this is merch.
This is a merch, yeah. And we have a bunch of other stuff which we are doing. Again, it's because weddings can become monotonous. Sometimes you need to motivate and drive yourself, and doing other stuff always help. And the third thing that I would like to pursue, I'm not doing it right now, is designing a space.
Wow.
The architecture.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, my dad used to subscribe to a lot of magazines, like fashion magazines, design, inside outside. There was a magazine called Inside Outside at that time. And sort of, I feel going through those magazines created in the back of my head without me knowing, it helped me create a certain sense of aesthetic. And creating a space, designing a space is something, again, has been a childhood dream of mine. Being from a middle class, you can't do much about, that dream, but at least, now, fortunately, in a space where I can, think of pursuing that. So these three things, I would like to pursue, and hopefully we'll do it soon.
Are you an avid reader of AD, Architecture Digest?
I have never read anything in my life.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
So you've never read anything in your life?
Other than obviously the school books. I don't like reading at all.
That's fair.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't want my kids to take this from me. I have never read anything.
Maybe you're more visual person.
Yeah, because I really wanted to develop this the habit of reading novels. I used to see my sister has like 10,000 books in her room, and she's a big avid reader. And I asked my sister, okay, if I have to start with one book, tell me one book which I can start. I really want to get into reading. And she said, okay, you start with Godfather. I said, okay, I'll start with Godfather. And I went through like 20 pages, 30 pages, and then I saw the film. I loved the film. And I'm like, why will I read a book when there's a film on it? So, I mean, that thing also, never happened. And maybe I'll start reading a book for which there's no film. But this is something I again, it's something I'm not very proud of. Reading is not my thing at all.
I mean, I'm so surprised to hear that, but also I feel like you've just scandalized all of our listeners.
I will not recommend, this, but yeah, I mean, it's not something I'm again very proud of. Yeah. I can't read.
Listen, you got to own who you are, like we
Yeah.
said. And if you're a visual guy, you're a visual guy.
Yeah.
But after we record, I can definitely recommend some books to you.
Yeah,
'Cause I am like
definitely.
I am an avid reader as
20,
well.
30 pages.
Just easy children's book.
I actually, I bought one book. I really wanted to get into reading, so I bought one book from airport. And the title of the book was 100 Greatest Stories of All Time.
Okay.
That was the title of the book. And it was pretty thin, so I thought, okay, this is a pretty thin book, 100 stories, so might be like a short stories. And the first story was the story of a crow which is trying to drink water from that thing. Like, what? So it was such a, it was so demotivating, like 100 stories of all time, and you start with something which you already heard like 100 times. The second story was about the race between the rabbit and the tortoise, and
the
I
hare
felt,
and
okay,
the tortoise.
this is probably not a great book to read.
Maybe if there was a film about it, then you would be more interested.
And I've not heard about that story. Okay. Yeah.
Actually, Siddharth, I don't know if you've been asked this before, and I'm sure you have in other interviews, but why House on the Clouds? What does that name signify for you?
I would like to tell a good story around that name, but sadly it's not there. It's a very random name. So sorry. I, again, as part of my pursuit to create something in terms of space and architecture, I really wanted to open a cafe. That was my dream at that time when I was in US. And I sort of imagined that cafe is going to be on a rooftop, somewhere on a rooftop.
Okay.
And so I named it House on the Clouds. I took the website also. I booked the website, houseoncloud.com.
Yeah.
But it was for that cafe.
I see.
There was no other intention. And it was a very random, because it just rhymed, House on the Clouds. That's it. It just sounded good to the ear. That's, again, there was no backstory. There's no deep meaning behind House on the Clouds. Later, we tried to force meaning into it by saying that, okay, house means smaller weddings which we do,
right?
Very intimate, which happen in the house, and clouds means the larger than life weddings that we do. I see. Both. Yeah. But it was forced into that meaning was forced because we were really wanted to put some sense in that name, but actually there's no sense. It's just a random name. Do you know what it sounds to me, if you don't mind me sharing? Yeah, please do. House on the Clouds to me represents when you're having your wedding day, you're probably on cloud 9, right? You're probably floating somewhere and you're like, this is the most amazing time of my life. But actually, house represents family and people who mean a lot to you being part of that, I guess, incredible, surreal experience. So it's almost like a bit of your home in the most surreal moment of your life. Okay, I'm going to use this line next time I do any podcast. I'm going to say, this is what it means. I'm going to invoice you. It was always in my head. You will receive an invoice tonight. Yeah. But it was, it's nice to hear, people, other people having, such emotional connection to the name. It's always good to hear. Thank you so much, Siddharth, for coming on BGS. It's been such a pleasure and an honor talking to you. Thank you for being honest about not having read any books in your life. I don't know if we can be friends, though, after that. I have one last question that I ask all of my guests, which is, what do you have strong game in? I think as a kid, I have always been a dreamer. And I feel now also I am just a dreamer. And so if I have to answer this one strong game, it's just like I dream a lot. I have a lot of things like I want to do. So dreaming is probably, I don't know if it falls into the the correct category, but yeah, that I think I dream a lot. I think a lot. I dream a lot. I have a lot of in my head. I want to do a lot of things, and so that is probably, if it translates, it becomes strong game, whatever. But as of now, they're dreams. But yeah, I dream a lot. That's my strength, I would say. That may be one of my favorite answers ever. Oh, actually. Damn it. Thank you. I love that. Yeah. Thank you so much once again.
I wish you so much success and continued growth in what you're doing with House on the Clouds. I think you make people feel so wonderful on their special day. Not only them, but actually people who watch your films feel a deep emotional connection, I think, to the couples that they're seeing getting married on screen, even if they don't know who they are. So I think it takes a lot of talent and a lot of insight and creative vision to be able to achieve that. So that comes across. I hope you know that. And yeah, I just hope to keep watching beautiful films that you're going to continue to make.
We hope to continue making good films. And thank you actually for this. I was actually a bit nervous before doing this. I'm not a since I don't read much, I can't speak well also.
I highly disagree. 1 hour later, I disagree.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it felt very personal, very casual. I liked it this way. So thank you so much for making this so easy.
Hi, me again. Just wanted to say thank you so much for listening to this episode of Brown Game Strong. I hope you enjoyed it and got something useful out of it. If you'd like to stick around, then please hit subscribe if you're listening on YouTube. And if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can click follow to get updated on all of the latest episodes. It helps me immensely in continuing to bring you more exciting guests and interesting stories so that we can continue to learn about all the awesome work that's happening in our community. Thank you for your support. It never goes unnoticed, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.